Hi, welcome to NicheCraft. My name is Cassie and I'm your host, and it has gotten down to the 50s here in southern Arkansas, and for me that means it is officially fall. And with it officially being fall, that means it is sweater weather, and sweater weather means all sorts of nice warm and cozy garments that we can wear to keep ourselves warm. One thing that I love the most about sweater weather is getting to wear my fuzzy slipper socks. I absolutely adore them, and I learned how to make these slipper socks myself here, and I wanted to share this pattern with you. This is a super easy pattern, and you can make it with size 4 weight or 5 weight yarn. You could even go up to 6 weight, but I would recommend using 4 or 5 weight to make these slipper socks. As you can see, they are ribbed. They are made in a tube sock fashion, but they do have a tapered toe, and you can make them long like this, and you can also fold them over. It doesn't matter how you wear them, just that they are nice and cozy and fun. Before I begin the tutorial, I want to give you a few notes about how to make these that I learned as I was making the tutorial for you guys. One of the biggest things that I learned by making this tutorial is just how stretchy this sock is. And as a result, you're gonna want to size lower, not higher. So I've made these really huge socks that I can wear myself over other socks, but I want to make sure that you guys get the right size. So for a standard adult size, you're gonna want to make your rectangle, and that'll make sense when the tutorial starts. You're gonna wanna make your rectangle between 6 and 7 inches. The only reason that you might wanna size up is if you have larger feet, or if your feet swell a lot, because that's the only way that going past 7 inches is going to really make that big of a difference. Another way is if you prefer to wear socks in double layers. All right. So for the adult size, I would say make your rectangle between 6 and 7 inches. And for a child size, I would say between 5 and 6 inches for a teenager, and even smaller depending on the child. You might need to get that child in the room so you can wrap the sock around them before you seam it together. No worries about the seam. We make the entire sock with a crochet hook. You do not need to sew. All right, guys? That said, this is a beginner-friendly project. This is very easy to make. And so if you have never made socks before in your life, this is where to start, because not only will you get a nice cozy product, but you'll also be able to easily make these socks in just a few hours. Those of you who are beginners might take more like a day, but for those of you who are pretty familiar with crochet and especially the advanced, you can make these easily in a couple of hours. All right, guys? So that said, we are going to start the tutorial. So before going into how to make the socks, I want to talk about the supplies. So you can use a 4, 5, or 6 weight yarn. It doesn't really matter. I decided to use this ice cream roving divigation, which is put out by Lion Brand. It is a really plush and soft acrylic that is almost like wool, without the scratchiness. And the reason I picked this instead of wool, for example, is that I know I can just throw these in the washing machine and they'll be okay. I'll probably still hand wash them anyway, but I just wanted to mention that's why I selected this. Of course, you can select your yarn based on your preferences, and I think that for most people, they'll probably want to make these slipper socks with wool. So definitely go with what makes you happy. And also know that I think that this would probably work best with a size 5 yarn, but I'm going to be using a size 4 anyway. So, just wanted to let you know that. You'll also need some scissors, a stitch marker. I would really highly suggest using a stitch marker. You don't have to, but I would suggest using one. A tape measure, and a crochet hook that matches the yarn that you're going to be using. So I just wanted to show you, if you want to make the exact socks that I'm making, this ice cream roving divigation is in the color taffy, and I'm using a 6.5 millimeter or K hook in order to make these socks. Alright, so this is a new ball. I've already made one of them, and so I'm going to bring back the other ball so I can show you how to get started. Step one when you're making these slipper socks is to make a rectangle first. And I just want to show you what this rectangle looks like because it's got a little bit of a nuanced way of being made. So one side of the rectangle is going to be a little bit wider here than the other side, and that is by design, and I'll show you how to do that. But I just want to show you before the sock is seamed together, and you can do that with the crochet hook. This is not something that you're going to have to sew in order to make. You can do this all with a crochet hook, but once we seam this together, this part is going to be smaller than the top part, which will show us the direction of where the toe is versus the part that comes up on your legs. And of course you can always fold that down. And so I just wanted to point that out with this piece right here before I showed you how to make this part of the sock. Alright, okay, so now we have an idea of what this rectangle is going to look like. It's time to begin. So we are going to start with a slip knot. Okay, and we can put that on the crochet hook like so. And what we're going to do is chain 53. Okay, so by chaining, what you do is you take your crochet hook. Let me go ahead and zoom in so you guys can see better. Just want to make sure my beginners are able to follow along. You pull this yarn through that loop by making another loop, and then you pull it through again. So I've just made two chains, and that would be 3, 4, 5, and on until I reach 53 chains. So when I get to 53 chains, I'll meet you guys back up here and I will show you how to do the next step. Alright, so I have chained 53, and if you want your socks to have a longer cuff, I would say just keep going. And if you want it to be shorter, more like an anklet, then I would say maybe do something around 38 to 42 chains, alright? Just wanted to get that out of the way. Okay, so this is row 1. So what you're going to do is you're going to skip that first chain, and you're going to make the next stitch into the second chain from the hook, okay? So when we talk about how many chains from the hook, we do not count the chain that's on the hook. We just count 1, 2, 3, and on. So we're going to skip 1 and go into the second chain from the hook. And what we're going to put there is a half double crochet. Alright, so in order to make a half double crochet, we yarn over. We put that crochet hook into that chain space inside of it. Then we pull a loop through. Alright, and we've got 3 loops on our hook. And then we pull that all the way through all 3 loops, and there is our first stitch. So what we're going to do is we are going to put a half double crochet into every single chain all the way across until we get to the other side. So I've zoomed out just so you guys can see me working at a different angle. Again, we're just going to be putting that half double crochet stitch into every single chain that we made for a total of 52 half double crochets. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to continue going on until the end, until I reach that last chain space, and I will meet you back up and show you what the next step is. Alright guys, so as you can see, I have reached the other side, and I have put a half double crochet in every single chain space all the way across until I reached the last stitch. So now what we're going to do is we're going to start on the side of that rectangle that's a little bit bigger, okay? So in order to do that, we are going to chain 2, 1, 2, and turn. So now that we've chained 2 and turn, I'm going to show you something that's really cool about the half double crochet stitch that isn't true for the single or the double crochet stitch. For those of you who followed along with my magic memory blanket, you'll probably remember this from when I did the Royal Ridge stitch, because that's exactly the same stitch that we're going to be using to make these socks. What's really cool about this is that if you look at the top, it's a regular stitch. Right? We've got that signature V that is a crochet stitch like that. But if you turn it to the side, you get another one that looks like a stitch as well. So what's really cool is that by just going into this back loop, what you can create is, and I'm picking up this other rectangle here, what you can create is this ridge right here that looks like it's the top of a stitch here, which is really pretty looking, and it ends up making these slipper socks look really, really pretty, and with those vertical stripes. Alright, so row 2. Instead of going into both of these stitches at the top, or both of these V's at the top, we're just going to be going into this back one. That way, these 2 stitches can form that ribbing that we see on the finished socks. So what you're going to do is you're going to yarn over, and just in this first stitch here, we're going to pull up a loop, pull through 2, and pull through 2 again. So we're going to do a double crochet stitch just in that first stitch. All right. Now we're going to go back to half double crochets, and we're going to half double crochet across, just like we did before, until we reach the end of this row. So what we end up doing there is on the side that is wider, we're just starting with a double crochet, and then we keep going. And that way we're making just that very top part of this just a little bit wider than a regular half double crochet, and that's going to accumulate over time. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to continue to put a half double crochet in this very back loop of every single stitch from the previous row until I reach the end of this row. And when I do, I will come back and show you how to shape the toe side of the rectangle. All right, see you then. All right, so I have made my half double crochets all in that very back loop all the way across, and I have finished with this last stitch here. And I just wanted to show you by zooming in how this really pretty ridge looks. And I really love this for these socks. So this is the point where you should add a stitch marker if that's what you're going to be doing. Now, how I decided to add a stitch marker for the first pair of socks is that I had a very special stitch marker that reminds me of my cat. It's a tuxedo cat, and it looks just like baby. And I decided that I was going to put my stitch marker on the toe end of the sock because it's smaller, just like baby's small. So I attached my little kitty cat stitch marker on the toe end so that I would remember that this is the smaller side, okay? And now, well, first off, I wanted to say, if you want these stitch markers with little kitty cat on it, I do sell these on my Etsy store. Just wanted to let you know where you can get them. if you like have a diaper pin stitch marker, you might want to put this on the toe end because it's small like a baby and babies have diapers, you know, just however you can remember. Or let's say you have an elephant stitch marker, you want to put that on the other side because elephants are big. Just whatever works for you to help you remember which side is the small side and which side is the bigger side. Here's how we do the toe side of the sock. So we just chain up 1 and turn, okay? Now that we have chained 1 and turn, we're going to identify that back loop. We're not going into both, but we're just going into that back loop, and we're going to be doing that every single row from here on out. And just do a single crochet, which is you put your hook into that back loop, you pull up a loop, and then you pull through 2. Okay? And then you're going to do that for 4 stitches. 2, 3, 4. So now that you have made 4 single crochets, we're going to go back to that half double crochet, putting a half double crochet in that back loop of every single stitch until we get to the other side. So I am going to continue to put a half double crochet in every single one of the back loop stitches until I get to the other side, and I will meet you there and show you what to do next. All right, so I have made that 3rd row all the way to the very end, and now we are on the bigger side of the rectangle. From here on out, we are going to repeat rows 2 and 3 until we reach the desired width or the desired height of our rectangle. So just wanted to go back through this. So for the 4th row, we're going to chain 2, 1, 2, turn. Okay, and we are going to make 1 double crochet into that first stitch. And when I say that, I mean we're always going into that back loop of the stitch, okay? We're not putting our hook under both of them. We're just putting it under that one. And then once we've made that double crochet, then we're going to go back to half double crochets all the way across. And once we reach the end of row 4, then we will be turning around and repeating this row 3 by making 4 single crochets and then switching to half double crochets all the way across. And you'll just continue to repeat those 2 rows until the rectangle meets your desired width. All right, so how do you figure out what that desired width is? So if you are making a standard sock for an adult, that width will be between 6 and 7 inches. Now you're not going to want to go too far over 7 inches because then they'll be too big, because remember, the material is very stretchy. As you can see, I made these socks way too big, and I'm demonstrating that by showing you that they are 8 inches tall. Now I'm zooming in on my mistake. So when you end your sock, you're going to want to end on the wider part, okay? So you end when you get to the part of the sock that is going to be at the top where your leg is, okay? You don't end at the toe side. All right. Another thing that you might want to do, because sometimes our feet are wider than our ankles are, is to measure across the widest side of your foot to find that out. But what we're basically going to be doing is seaming them together like this. So half of that is what you're going to need in order to make the socks. So now that I have a full square here, I'm going to show you how to seam these together with a crochet hook, no sewing involved at all. When you are done and you are on this last row of the wider side, sorry, just wanted to make sure I didn't have a stitch falling out there, it's time to join these two sides right here. Okay, and it doesn't really matter which side you do this on, because when the way that we're joining it is that we're going to be making something that looks just like this ridge here. Let me go ahead and zoom in so you guys can see. Yeah, when we join these together, we're just going to be making one of those where they join. So here is how we do that. Okay, so to join them, first off, you do not have to cut this off from the yarn. I did and left a tail, okay, so that I had enough yarn to do this part. But you don't have to cut it off. You can just keep it attached because you're going to go straight from the very top to doing this seam. So what you're going to do is you're going to fold your rectangle over so that you have this side with the chains right next to that last stitch that you made, okay? And you're going to insert your hook underneath, just like you were going to go into the next stitch to start a new row. You're going to find that back loop. You're going to insert your hook into that, and then insert your hook into the loop of the chain, pull up a loop through that, okay, and then pull that through that last loop from the last stitch. And that is a slip stitch, and that's how we're going to continue to seam these together. Again, putting the crochet hook through the back loop of that and the loop of that chain, pulling a loop through, and then slip stitching them together. See that? So you don't even have to use a sewing needle, just using a crochet hook to slip stitch these together. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to continue to slip stitch down the entire length until I get to the toe. Just want to show you here on the outside here what it looks like on mine. And if you don't like the way this looks on the outside, you can always turn it inside out, or you can turn it inside out and then that could be the right side versus the quote-unquote wrong side. It just depends on what you like yourself. But basically, I'm going to continue to slip stitch all of these together until I get to that toe, and when I get to the toe, I'll show you what to do from there. See you then. I have almost seamed together this entire sock, and I just want to show you what it looks like on the outside. If I was to keep that seam on the outside, it would, let me go ahead and zoom in here, it wouldn't really stick out that much because it's part of that pattern of having those. But if you don't like that, you can always, once you're done, turn it inside out like this, and have this part be the outside of the sock. But we can't do that yet because we still have to do the toe. So let me now show you how to do the toe part of this. Okay, how to do the toe. First, if you haven't already, you're going to have to take off that stitch marker. Now, I was really lucky that I had the same amount of stitches on each side. Not that it should be luck. I mean, math says that you should. But sometimes when you're seaming things together, you don't get it exact. And that's okay. If you're going to mess up on this side, not the other side. So, basically, I have got this last stitch to do here. All right. And if you have an extra stitch, what I would suggest you do is take your yarn and just put it back through the same stitch on one side and put it through the extra stitch on the other, and that should be just fine. No problem. Okay, so now that we have have it down the length of the sock, we're going to need to do these toes together. So when we were constructing this, we had we alternated between half double crochets and single crochets. So the edging here is going to not be perfect, quote unquote, okay? It's not going to line up perfectly, but if you can kind of line it up so that this single crochet is right next to that half double crochet, then what you can do is go through the end part of this here, and you're going to be doing the exact same thing by slipping those 2 stitches together. Alright, so now we have our first slip stitch on the toe. So now that we have reached the half double crochet side, what we're going to do is we're going to put 2 slip stitches on the half double crochet side. So we put this crochet hook through both of those loops, so we are slip stitching it together. So I'm going to do 1 and 2 for that half double crochet. Alright, now we're on the single crochet row, so I'm going to put a slip stitch here into that 1 single crochet, just 1. Okay, and I'm going to alternate that with 2 in the half double crochets. And this should go pretty fast. So what you're going to do is you're going to do this all the way across this toe until you reach the very end. I'm slip stitching across that to create this seam right here. And when you reach the end, I will show you how to hide your ends. Alright, see you there. Alright guys, so I have finished seaming the toe there. And I am going to then pull a loop through here, and I'm going to cut off this end here. So let me show you on camera. Okay. And let me zoom out a little bit so you can see better. So, one thing about socks is that the inside can be a little irritating if you have something in that toe that feels wrong, okay? So we're going to be hiding the tails up the side, okay, instead of along the toe. That's, this is going to be your own preference, but for me, that's the way I'm going to need it. Again, you can just use your crochet hook. You do not have to do anything fancy, and just take this little tail here and weave it in between one of these stitches over here. It's not going to show because this is going to be on the inside. And just another thing that I didn't think about, but you guys might want to do is just to have a longer tail so you can weave it in further so it doesn't come out. For me, I just cut off a shorter tail. So, that's the way it is for me. But if you cut, the longer the tail, the higher up it can go. And this won't, irritate your little toes. But I'm going to just clip off this part right here so that it'll just kind of disappear underneath that. Now I am going to take this and pull it inside out here, and you can see I have this cute little toe right here on my sock. It's so cute, isn't it? Aww. And where I joined it together, you can hardly even tell. In fact, you can't. Right there. Isn't that amazing? So cool. Alright, so all you have to do at this point is make a second one. And given that these are relatively easy to make, and the wider the yarn weight, if you use a 4, it might take a few hours per sock. If you use a 5 or a 6, it might not even take that. you can make these pretty quickly. So it shouldn't be too hard to make a match to this. Another thing that you might want to do, this is something that I'm thinking about doing for my socks, is you might want to do like a slip stitch or a row of single crochets around that top. Just depends on what you like. Of course, once you hide this tail, because I haven't hidden that part yet, that's the part on the other side, you can always wear them folded over like this. And if you want to make them in ice cream roving divigation, the color taffy, they will have some green in them as well as that pink and white. But again, you can make them in any kind of yarn that you want. Some yarns that come to mind that might be good for these would be Ice Cream Landscapes, Red Heart Unforgettable. Ice Cream Roving Divigation is amazing for these. I would highly recommend that one. And those are the 4-weight ones. As far as 5 and 6, I would just say go with something that feels soft to you. It feels like a treat, because I know that when I'm wearing fuzzy socks or sock slippers that I just love the way that the texture feels. And it can make all the difference between having a good morning, for me, or having a good night if I'm wearing them while I'm reading, because I can sometimes read a little bit late into the night. I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial. If you do, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. If you are not already subscribed, I suggest that you do that, because I have a whole lot of giveaways, and I have a giveaway going on right now. So if you want to go ahead and find that giveaway, I suggest go into my channel looking for that giveaway so that you can enter to win. Just a big yarny goodness package, and I always have them. So if you do decide to subscribe, I would suggest to turn on that notification bell, because I always post a video when somebody wins, and you're going to want to know if you won, right? Yeah. So, in addition to that, I also have other yarny content. Like, I like to unbox mystery boxes. I have other crochet tutorials and all sorts of good stuff having to do with crochet and yarn. Thank you so much for watching this video to the end, and I will see you soon with another video. Bye for now.